Welcome to thank goodness, only 15 games to go edition of Sharing Sox. I'm Southside Sox duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent Will. As we count down to the possibility of 100 losses, we're recording on Friday after the first devastation at the hands of the Twins. The Sox are 56 and 91. So they have 15 games left. To avoid 100 losses, they have to win 7 of them. They have 3 left against Minnesota, then 3 each against Washington, Boston, Arizona, and San Diego. Kind of a schedule in there. Nobody who's desperately fighting, although Arizona is still in it.
Arizona is definitely still trying to make the playoffs. Yeah.
So they're the only one really in that position. But at any rate, what you think 100? You think I can make 100?
I think there are very few things that we can be certain about in life, right? We've got death and taxes being the two most iconic certainties in life. I'm going to throw in a third one here, which is the White Sox lose 100 games.
Dakota.
I don't see a world where they don't. And I mean, of course it's possible, but every team you listed, despite how they don't necessarily all have a lot to play for, they are all better. So I just
Even
don't.
Washington, which is playing pretty well lately.
For what? And can you believe that we are saying that the 2023 Washington Nationals are better than us? That is a team that I thought was like just a bunch of little leaguers this season. They threw in the towel as hard as anybody but Oakland and Kansas City, and even Kansas City not as much. But Washington was a team where I thought, man, they could lose 130 games, and here they are better than the White Sox. I think there's almost no way the White Sox escape this season without 100 losses. I just don't see it happening.
Dakota, there's not a Dakota today. I checked. Lately, they've only been doing every 2 or 3 days. So it was before the 10-2 shellacking by Minnesota on Thursday night, the 14th. Dakota had them at 99.9 because they do tenths. So I think that probably rounds to 100.
What's the point of giving a 99.9 projection?
It's just the way the computer throws it out there.
Hey, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they'll end the season at 99.9 losses. I don't know. I could be wrong.
It could be the last game could be called in the 8th inning or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Goes down as a partial. Yeah. So we march on. Who knows what's going to happen? I looked at some team stats. Just for their rankings, runs per game, 25th. This is on the batting side. Homers, we always say, wow, if they got homers, we got the homers, we'd be better. Well, homers are 20th, so that's not good, but not bad. Stolen bases, 23rd. Bases on balls. Well, we know that one. 30th by 25.
Wow.
25 fewer walks than Kansas City. Got it.
We are dead last in walks.
Oh, we've been dead last. We've been going back and forth to Detroit all season, and now we're running away with it. And I read somewhere, and I didn't memorize it or write it down, that the differential between walks taken and walks given, because our pitchers are 29th at giving up walks, worse than everybody but the A's. It's like the 5th worst in the history of Major League Baseball.
Wow.
It may be 5th, or maybe 6th, or maybe 4th, but it's there in at least the very bottom 10 of the history of Major League Baseball. You think of what horrible teams have been out there.
Wow. That is truly pathetic. And I am seeing, and this is, related to that, obviously, our team on base percentage this year, in which we are 30th.
Dead last.
Is under 300.
Yes.
Under 300. We're not talking about batting average. The Atlanta Braves team batting average is only 18 points lower than our team on base percentage.
And
that
we're not
is insane.
And it's not because of the 3 true outcomes, because the OPS is 29th in the majors. Again,
Yeah.
the A's, of course, you get saved by the A's. But, look, the two guys, Oscar Colás just got sent down to the minors. And you can argue, gosh, you sent a guy down with 3 totally meaningless games. I mean, weeks of meaningless games. That's kind of rude. But he was actually getting worse. That's what's scary. He and Lenin Sosa were supposed to be the two guys coming up. And yeah, boy, they need time. They need bats. And we've said that. Keep them up there, keep them going, let them play in the major league level, give him more time. Well, he was up to 263 plate appearances. That's enough time.
Yeah, that's a lot of time. That's a big sample.
And he had was hitting 179 in September, and it had been 216 on the year. So he was getting worse. Sosa, who's still up, at 279 in August. You go, yeah, Lenin's finally got it, right? All right, September he's hitting 214 with a 511 OPS.
Wow.
He's got to put him in the bottom 1 or 2%. And in 153 plate appearances in 2023, how many walks do you think Lenin Sosa has?
How many plate appearances do you say?
153.
153 plate appearances. I'm going to go with 1 walk.
Perfect. Excellent guess.
I got it.
One walk in 153 plate appearances. 33 strikeouts, which isn't a terribly bad strikeout ratio, except as opposed to walks. I mean, that's.
Here's the thing. If I played Major League Baseball for the Chicago White Sox and you gave me 153 plate appearances, I'm at least getting 2 walks because I'm never swinging because I'm never going to hit it. So I'm just watching every time. At least 2 guys are going to accidentally throw me 4 balls. There's a lot of wild pitchers out there. You got 2 guys who are going to, which means he was actively worse at taking a walk than if he never swung the bat at all.
Yes.
That is my theory. And I believe it is scientifically backed up. That is insane. 1 walk in 153 plate appearances.
Makes Tim Anderson look like Eddie Yost.
Oh my gosh, no kidding. Wow, absolutely terrible. And our leader in on-base percentage is Ben Attendee at only .332. And I mean, so that tells you that even your guys...
And he's a -4 player. Our
well,
leader in on-base percentage
are.
is the -4 player. I looked, yeah, I mean, Luis is 5.0. Luis Robert Jr. is superb this year.
Yes.
He's 5.0. The rest of the team is minus 3.1.
Wow.
You say, could it get worse? Well, yeah, because a plus 1.4, the next on the team, was Jake Berger. So
who we got rid Berger,
of. They're minus 4.5. It's insane. Of course, fielding, defensive run saved, 29th, helped by the A's, of course. Range factor, 30th by a huge margin.
Wow.
St. Louis, 29th there. Pitching, runs per game, 27th they allow. ERA is 26. The difference, I guess, because the defense is so crappy that they're more under runs. They're 4th in the majors in striking people out. So maybe we have a bad strategy. Because they're 4th in the majors in striking people out. They don't get anybody out. They don't strike them out. And they're 29th in the number of walks that they give up. 26th in whip and the number of people that are on base.
The only pitcher in the top 50.
Feeling that you have to strike out everybody isn't good strategy.
The only pitcher, White Sox pitcher in the top 50 for WAR is Mike Clevenger.
And he's going to be gone. We hope he's gone, although Pedro Grifol goes, well, we want him to come back. Well, I can tell you the fans don't want him to come back. He's the only pitcher, incidentally, who meets that 2.0 WAR level, which is what you should have if you're a major league regular. He's the only pitcher that makes that. Now, it's very hard for a relief pitcher to make it. So Gregory Santos, I think, is about a 1.4 for a relief pitcher. That's really good.
That's really good. Yeah,
that's very good for a relief pitcher. But
yeah,
so he's doing great. But yeah, he who we are not supposed to name is the only one over the 2-point mark. And the guys we traded. Now, the guys we traded we get rid of because either in a couple of cases they were going to be gone anyway at the end of the year, or it was a matter of picking up an option. Giolito stunk in California, snuck in his first game in Cleveland. His last game in Cleveland, he was better. Lance Lynn is to me a mystery because he was great for the Dodgers. It's like, well, he got a pitching coach who showed him what to do. Great. That was like 3 or 4 games, just absolute lights out. Then had a Lance Lynn collapse, and then gave up like 105 runs in 2 innings or something. Then he had one where he went 4 innings of one hit ball, and then completely fell apart in the 5th inning, which shocked me. And then his last one was very good. He gives up homers. He always gives up homers, but they're solo homers.
I mean, he gives up a lot of home runs, but
he always has.
They tend to always be solo home runs because he challenges guys. I mean, that was the thing when he pitched against the Braves. You know, Lance Lynn is almost certainly going to lose against this Atlanta Braves team.
Everybody is.
Everybody is, but a guy like Lance Lynn who can really shut down some other teams, he's not going to shut down a team that just eats fastballs for breakfast. I mean, that Braves team is just such a high-powered offense that the guy who goes out there, and the reason I love Lance Lynn, and I love having him on the Dodgers, is he's fearless. He goes after everybody. He goes straight for you with four-seam fastballs all day, all night. That is what he does.
Cutters. They're fastball cutters. Equivalents. It's got cutters and sinkers. He varies it, but it's always fastballs. Yeah.
Right. It's always fastballs. That works against a lot of teams. It's not going to work against that Braves lineup. And that was proven. I mean, they destroyed him. But he was going to be destroyed by the Atlanta Braves. It's just what was going to happen.
One thing was interesting. Remember, early in the season, and we talked about it at length because we both happened to watch that game. He went to a curveball, and I don't remember the specific team he was playing against, but he went to a curveball and was really effective. He had great control over getting swings and misses all over the place. I think because when the other team prepped, they didn't prep for a curveball because he'd thrown about 2 in the last 10 years. And it was great. And he never seemed to go back to that. I don't know if he never had a feel for it again.
Well, he definitely, were you referring to the Seattle game, the 17 strikeout game, or the 16 strikeout game?
It may have been that one.
Yeah, because the curveball was absolutely elite that night.
Oh, it was just a boom off a table, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why he tied the White Sox strikeout record, or broke it. I can't remember if he broke it or tied it, but he had a curveball that we've almost never seen from him. It was absolutely spectacular, and I have no reason for that because he hasn't thrown it much for the Dodgers. He's gone back to throwing mostly variations of the fastball, either the cutter, the sinker, or a four-seamer, and he has not been throwing a ton of curveballs for the Dodgers again. So I don't know if that was just a thing that was going very, very well that night, and he sort of lost it after coming over, or, you know, I've been around him at the Dodgers quite a bit, and I've seen him working with Mark Pryor. I've been spying and seeing, you know, quite a bit of conversation about grips on the ball. I've seen them watching a lot of footage of hand grips on the baseball. So I don't know. But he has looked, with the exception of the 1.5 outings, he has looked like the Lance Lynn that we've all seen over the past 10 years of his career in Los Angeles, which is huge for the Dodgers, who are completely depleted in the pitching category. I do know, too, Lance Lynn is he's a big mound guy. He is a big guy where it is very important how the mound is packed, which, you know, often this is something I actually didn't think of. It's kind of an interesting baseball thing in terms of home field advantage or a pitcher feeling better at home than on the road. I didn't really realize this, that the mound is packed specifically for the starting pitcher in the way that they want it that day, which makes sense. It's something I should have just assumed, but I didn't realize how specific it was. And I know Lynn, because of his size and his weight, he tears up the mound pretty intensely. You see him. He is constantly fumbling with the dirt in his landing spot. So I haven't looked at his road numbers. I would think that he's got significantly worse road numbers because road starters are at a pretty intense disadvantage that I didn't really realize how much of a disadvantage it was, because the mound is set up and packed for the home starter at all times. So you can get out there with a pretty funky mound in some ways if the home starter prefers a mound that is packed very differently from the way you would prefer it. It's just an interesting little baseball nuance that I think a lot of people don't think about. Much more so than the home plate area. The mound is very specifically packed with specific types of dirt. I know that the mound dirt at Dodger Stadium is, kind of the most expensive dirt you'll ever touch in your life, because it's a very specific form of clay that they use, and they alter the mix based on who the starter is, because some starters want it to be sort of rock solid the whole game. Some starters want it to ease in and break in a little bit more as they go. So it's just another interesting factor that adds to home field advantage or disadvantage. Something to think about when you're watching these big playoff games. And starters on the road, I feel like you could go a little easier if your guy doesn't have a lights out road appearance, since he may be pitching. And I remember from my pitching days, not that anybody was packing any mounds to help the home starter, but boy, you pitched on some just disastrous mounds in high school. Just stuff where you go in, and if you don't alter your follow through step 3 inches to the right, you're going in a tunnel that might open up in China on the other end. Like these things are just terrible. Sometimes you get a mound where you're all of a sudden it feels like you're throwing down from the top of a ski slope, and you're falling down a mountain as you deliver a pitch. And then sometimes you get them and you're like, this is softball plus is all we're working with here today. I'm almost on the exact same plane. We should take our break here, though, and come back, talk a little bit more. I know you wanted to talk about Oscar Colás's fundamentals, possibly something that got him sent down as well. And we can, talk about what can change to make this better.
I think we need to get into, okay, what do you do now if you happen to be a total blithering idiot who got promoted to general manager?
Yes, absolutely. So let's take a quick break, and we will be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We, kind of wallowed in our valley of despair, as we do often on this podcast during the 2023 season. But there's going to be, believe it or not, a 2024 season.
Which is too bad.
Which is kind of too bad, because so we're looking at, we just broke down the numbers in the first half. The White Sox, I think our best scenario was we were 20th in Major League Baseball on something. Maybe it was home runs, I think. And in most cases, we are in that 28 to 30 range. Is there anything, I'm going to start with this broad question, is there anything that can be done by 2024 to make this team competitive when you are talking about numbers in the 29th and 30th ranking of Major League Baseball?
No, I'm competitive with Kansas City, maybe. We talked about, Pedro Grifol, when Oscar Colás was sent out, says he's got to work on his fundamentals, he's got to work on base running, he's got to work on deep, and he's right. Grifol doesn't get much right, but he's got that right. Colás's fundamentals, when he's throwing a ball, he has no idea who he's supposed to be throwing it to or where it goes. He doesn't approach balls right, which is strange. Again, he played in Japan for 3 years. He played 114 games in Japan, where they really teach fundamentals. You and I watched a Japanese high school game where every fundamental was perfectly done by every player on the field. Granted, it was the equivalent of a state championship, but still, they were high school kids.
But still, it looked like that old video you would see of Fred McGriff being like, I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of baseball, and which was a great video, and the fundamental work, and it was spectacular. Those kids all looked like the instructional video, Fred McGriff's instructional video.
Well, yeah, and I think a couple things have there. One, it's typical of Japanese ball players, as you saw in the World Championships this
baseball
spring.
Classic,
but also watching, if you watched Little League World Series when they've had teams in it, even the 12-year-olds know exactly what to do. Maybe they can't do it, but they know what to do. And I think also the game that you and I saw was in 2005, which Ichiro, he'd already come to the States. He was playing for Seattle, but he was the hero of the country at the time. They may play differently now that Ohtani is the hero of the country and hitting the ball 800 feet. But Ichiro achieved his greatness by doing everything perfectly the way baseball's supposed to be played.
Have you seen the video of Ichiro standing behind the mound, and they've put up 3 sticks at home plate, and he knocks them down in order on the first try? And then the even more impressive one, he's in the infield. They've put a trash can in the outfield up towards the wall. He throws a ball. He knocks the lid off the trash can with the first ball. Before the first ball even lands, he throws the second ball. The first ball knocks the lid off the trash can. The second ball goes in. I mean,
I have not seen it. That's amazing.
Best fundamental baseball player in the history of the game. And I
think so. I agree.
I do think we're actually still in the Ichiro era, because the guys like Ohtani and the young professional players, they're coming from the Ichiro era. It's now going to be the kids growing up who are looking up to Ohtani. But they're also always going to look up to Ichiro. Ichiro was not some, strange commodity. Ichiro was a flawless baseball player. He was as good as it gets. There's nothing about Ichiro's game that you would not want to do moving forward, with the exception of, I don't believe Ichiro ever heard the term or considered the term launch angle. I don't think they bothered translating it to Japanese for him, because Ichiro's launch angle was about a -80 as he pounded the ball into the ground every single time, because he was lightning fast. I don't know how Colás is so terrible fundamentally, and for that matter, it spills over to the rest of the White Sox as well.
And it didn't spill
fundamentally
from him. The whole team. I mean, and everybody talks about it. Even Getz coming up is talking about it. They talked about it for years. It was Getz's job. He was in charge of the minor leagues for 7 years. Why are they bad fundamentally? Now, they didn't all come up through the White Sox system, but enough did. Tim Anderson came up, did not even hold the glove the right way in his rookie year. I don't know if you remember that. He would go for a ground ball with the glove backwards.
Yeah.
Depending on what side it was shifting at. Now he's improved on that. Speaking of Tim, what would you do? What are you going to do with Tim Anderson? First big decision for Chris Getz. You have a 14 million, maybe 14.5 option for next year. What do you do?
You let him walk. There's no reason to pick it up, and that's not because I'm so anti-Tim these days, because he hasn't been playing that well and he got in a fight. Like I all of that aside, there's no reason to pick it up, and the reason for that is what we started the second half of this podcast with, which is there's no way to be competitive in 2024. There is no way to be competitive. This team is so terrible at every level, in every aspect, that why would you pay $14 million to lose 100 games again? And in my dream world, the answer is you pick it up and you also spend $250 million more on real baseball players. We obviously know that's not going to happen. We're not going to buy any big contracts.
Jerry Reinsdorf apparently broke the rules and will be fined. I don't think they make these fines public for saying that they're not looking at Ohtani. You can't do that, apparently. That's part of the union contract. You can't go out and say we're not going to look at a guy. So
because they could use it for leverage, and now you've compromised leverage.
Yeah.
Well, Jerry Reinsdorf saying we're not looking at Ohtani is like me
Everybody
saying...
knew that. He didn't really need to say
That's like me saying, I'm not looking at buying a Lamborghini right now. Like, of course I'm not. Ridiculous.
Tim, of course, had an absolutely... And I think in Tim's case, letting Tim go would be the best thing you could do for Tim Anderson. The alternative...
Absolutely.
...is to take the option and trade him. And I get to that, even though he's -2 WAR and difficult to trade. Of course, he was terrible through the first 3 months of the season. In July, in July, which is the month leading up to the trade deadline, when there was talk about, yeah, we're open to trading Tim Anderson. There's a lot of talk about that, or teams were interested in Tim Anderson. He hit 292 with a 701 OPS. That's still a little below average on the OPS, but it was 125 points higher than he's hit for the whole season. Then August, back down to 219 and OPS of 584, and continue on into September. Tim doesn't want to be here.
No.
Tim really wanted out. I don't blame him. And I wish him the best wherever he goes. Now, the alternative, and here's where I think the strategy thing is. Today, I think MLB trade rumors came out that they're doing position by position free agent lists, who are the best free agents at this or that. And they did shortstop today. There's nobody. I mean, last year, the greatest shortstops of baseball were all out there for $200-300 million contracts. There's nobody. So that being the case, could you get something for Tim Anderson? Would somebody swallow that salary? I don't know.
I mean, I do think that the answer to that is yes. Do I think it's going to be anything amazing? No. I don't think you're getting anyone's top prospects for Tim Anderson on a $14 million deal. That being said, $14 million for a decent shortstop is not expensive. That is just not where we are money-wise these days. You're talking about places where people have shortstops on 10-year, $300 million deals. So $14 million, I think Tim actually could be a very good player again for not the White Sox. So
I do too. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
He's not a good defensive shortstop. He's never going to be that.
No, but he also would likely transition to second base for a different organization that knew how to run itself, especially a competitive organization. If he were to be traded to a team that has a chance of winning, I actually think Tim would go to second base, no complaints, just like Ahmed Rosario did when he came over to the Dodgers this season, which brings me to a fundamental thing, which I'm gonna talk about this. We can come back to that if we want. But so I've worked for the Dodgers. I won't get into what capacity, but I am there all the time, and I see a lot of the practice. And I have seen Ahmed Rosario on the field for hours and hours with Dino, the third base coach, just practicing covering second base on a double play. I'm talking hours of just making sure the footwork is correct, the body turn is correct, the throw is correct. This is a major league player who has, not this year, but was a good shortstop previously, and he is working his butt off. They work those infielders like crazy. The other day, Freddie Freeman taking an hour of ground balls at shortstop to prepare because they are so into fundamentals and being a complete team. This Dodgers team is, obviously we have some stars, but this is an injury depleted team. This team is good because they play hard and they practice hard. That team gets there 7 to 8 hours before game time every single day. They're practicing 6 hours before game time up to game time every single day. And I'm talking fundamentals. The other day I watched James Outman in the outfield take fungo on one-hop ground balls. This is a Gold Glove level center fielder who is taking fungo one-hop ground balls for an hour. And I mean, this looked mind-numbingly boring. And every time, he's doing it in a very specific way, getting the glove as far out in front as possible, making sure he gets there. And if he didn't do it, you saw the coach tell him how to do it. You saw him correct it. You saw him shake his head. Nope, not far enough. Didn't get the glove out far enough. This is professional baseball. This is how teams win baseball games. We have gone to White Sox games early. I can't vouch for their arrival time. I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to act like I do. But the pre-game work that I see the Dodgers put in, and I will also say that I see the visiting teams do it as well. And I can tell you which visiting teams put in the work and which ones don't. And I can tell you who's out there working their butts off. And those teams are these teams that we did not think were going to be good this year and are still in the conversation. The Reds, the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, the Brewers. Those teams are out there for hours in the outfield practicing fundamentals. The Reds, the freaking Reds, they have cones set up in the outfield before games on the road and are doing running drills like a little league practice. I mean, it's unbelievable the work you see these guys put in. I have never seen anything like that when we've gone early to White Sox games. You barely see guys stretch, and yet I'm here watching. I'm seeing Clayton Kershaw, who is an anomaly in terms of work ethic. He is famous for his work ethic. This dude's out here doing what is it? Kinesthetics. He is out there just doing baseline to baseline run touching at noon on a 7 o'clock game day that he's not pitching.
And it's 100 degrees.
And it's 100 degrees outside. The other day, I'm walking through the ballpark. Brewstar Gratterall is running the warning track the entire time I'm there in 90-degree heat in hoodie and sweatpants. This is a dude who is a relief pitcher who pitches one inning every now and then. Now, granted, his ERA is, I think, $1.30. So whatever he's doing it right. But this is how teams win and play outside of their means, which is what we're seeing from the Reds. It's what we're seeing from the Diamondbacks. It's what we're seeing from the Cubs. It's what we're seeing from the Brewers. I'll tell you a team that noticeably was not doing these things, the San Diego Padres.
Oh, wow.
And what do we see from the San Diego Padres? Complete dysfunction and fundamental breakdown of baseball. And that is what you see from the Chicago White Sox as well. And I cannot tell you how much my mind has been blown watching these elite Major League Baseball players practicing for hours every single day. Freddie Freeman, who I believe still doesn't have an error, I've seen him take more practice at shortstop because he wants to get better. And you get better playing shortstop than you do just playing first. He wants to get better at his job. This dude has no errors and is an MVP candidate. And he's out there wanting to get better at baseball every day. Just turned 33, and he's out there trying to get better every single day. We don't have that on the south side of Chicago. We don't have guys who are trying to get better. I mean, there are probably some individual, circumstances where they're doing the work on their own. But you don't see it at a team level. You don't see it. And that's Chris Getz. That trickles down from Chris Getz and his old job as well. If you're not seeing it at the major league level, I find it hard to believe you were seeing it at the minor league level. Now, I know the Dodgers are famous for their treatment of minor league players and their quality treatment of minor league players. So my guess would be that this is expected of these players all the way down through the farm system, this kind of work ethic. When they get to the major leagues, they are doing the same types of drills and work that you would expect to see in the minors, in the college level, in the high school level. It has really blown my mind, really impressed me. And then when you see the road teams doing it, it just makes me even more bummed out about this White Sox team and what they could have been. I do believe that this team did not put in the work, just did not put in the work. And it's trickled down from ownership through bad operations, through bad management, through bad coaching, into bad playing. And that is just how it works. You do not have a lousy tier that trickles down into great baseball. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen anyway.
You're talking about the more visible part. And what part I would find most interesting to find out is that what you can't see, which is the mental part. Because so much now, you have so much video to work with. You have so much knowledge of every pitcher's his slider breaks down 3 inches and over 8 inches, and that's what you got to work for. That's where you got to be aiming if you see that spin on the slide. That there's so much out there in the way of information. And I know the Dodgers, because I saw this, they have an entire department in Arizona of kinesiologists.
Yeah.
Working on everything about muscle memory and muscle development and whatnot. You know, and people talk about that with the Sox all the time. They lack the kind of departments and research that other teams are doing regularly. It's not with the Sox. But I'd be curious as to whether regular White Sox players, whether the guys, obviously they do look at video, but how intensely do they look at it? How much do they look at it? I can remember games, I don't know why I was watching it, but J.D. Martinez, who was one of the better hitters of our era, striking out and being really, really ticked off and going back in the dugout, grabbing an iPad or a Kindle or whatever it was, and just and he was de-aging. So by the time he was next at bat, he was still looking at every pitch that the pitcher threw and how he threw it and what he may have done wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that happens with the White Sox.
I don't either. I don't, and I certainly don't see any of it. But of the stuff that I can't see, I certainly don't sense that any of it's happening. If you're not going to pay to make your organization better, your organization's not going to get better. And this organization is not going to get better under Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm making the bold prediction right now. This team does not see a pennant under Jerry Reinsdorf, period.
Now, pennant would refer only to winning the AL Central.
Correct.
Do you stand by that?
Yes, that is what I mean.
Horrible as the division is.
Under Jerry Reinsdorf, this team does not win a pennant. It just
I think it's very possible. I think they could be fifth. I think they could be fifth in the worst division of baseball next year. And
this is going to remain
originally
the worst.
Had hopes for 2025, but after the Getz hiring, I don't think 2025 either.
Because what do you have going for you in 2025? Luis Robert and Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, who went from being an elite ace to one of the worst starters in Major League Baseball. Like he's terrible. He's terrible. The only starting pitcher we have that's worth anything is Voldemort, he who shall not be named, and he's not that good. He's okay. I mean, what do you have? Look, all I can hope for these White Sox players that I do like Luis and Tim, I just hope that they get to go somewhere else. I do. I hope they don't get Mike. I hope they don't get Mike Trouted into it.
Being traded. I mean, obviously, he'll be a free agent at some point. But
I just mean after free agency. Because if Reinsdorf still, I know he's not a free agent for a few years, but if Reinsdorf is still the owner of this team in a few years, I just hope Luis Robert goes to a team that actually has leadership and focus and training and because he's elite. Luis Robert is an elite baseball player.
Absolutely.
If he were on a real team, if he were on an actual good team with good coaching, good leadership, good management, good facilities, good training staff, he is a over 300, over 40 home run, Gold Glove every year for the next 5-6 years. There's no doubt in my mind. He is an elite baseball talent. He is one of the best players in the game, and I think a lot of that potential we haven't seen yet. I think he is just getting better and better on his own because I don't think anybody's helping him do it. I think he's just that good of a natural talent. If he can get off this team and get to a team that knows how to play baseball and knows how to coach baseball, I think you're talking about a perennial MVP candidate.
He's not without weakness, and his one weakness, as we know, is chasing sliders.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a weakness for all major league players against a really good slider, but he chases pretty bad sliders. Yeah. If somebody can work with him, not so much to to hit them because they're unhittable, but to recognize them so he's not swinging at them. That's even one more step up for a guy who's already terrific.
Yeah, I mean that I think is what would take him from a 275 guy to a 300 guy every year is just being able to lay off those pitches. But we are well over our time today. This was a delightful post-mortem of our not even dead yet season. Although I will say thank you to the Chicago White Sox. They did choose to get eliminated on September 10th, which is my birthday. So it felt like a really lovely little birthday gift to me that I got to see the big Instagram post that says eliminated from ESPN. Really, really charming way to ring in this 37th year of my life. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time on Sharing Sox.